Okay, today we're going to look at some books about Peter Rabbit. Story written by Beatrice Potter. This one says Peter Rabbit, illustrations by Carl and Mary Haug. It doesn't say when it was written or the date it was copywritten. It's so old, it's been taped together and pages are missing. It's so cute, I just had to share it with you. And I have another book. It's a golden book about Peter Rabbit. I want to share some of those pictures with you. Pictures by Adriana Massa Savosi. This one comes from 1958. Some really cute pictures. The golden books, they have new illustrators of old books quite often. It's really fun to see the different illustrations of the same story. Do you ever do illustrations with your teacher at school? Our teachers are good at teaching how to draw and teaching you about color and illustration. Now, the one I chose to read to you is The Tale of Peter Rabbit. This one says by Beatrice Potter, based on the original and authorized edition. And this one comes from the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. It says to learn more about her program, visit Dolly Parton's Imagination Library's website at www.imaginationlibrary.com. That's kind of neat. And this book says it was first published in 1902. Wow. And now it's 2018. The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrice Potter, Frederick Warren. Once upon a time there were 4 little rabbits, and the names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fir tree. "Now, my dears," said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, "you may go into the fields or down to the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there. He was put in a pie by Mrs. McGregor." Here we see our little rabbits. Oh, there we see Peter. "Now run along and don't get into mischief. I'm going out." Then old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the wood to the baker's. She bought a loaf of bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail were good little bunnies. Went down the lane to gather blackberries. Oh, I wonder what Peter's up to. He doesn't seem to be with them. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straightway to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. First he ate some lettuces and some French beans, and then he ate some radishes. There I'm squeezing under that gate. Well, look at him, he's just having a good old lunch. Carrots. He's having a good time, isn't he? And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. But round the end of a cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting out young cabbages. But he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" Oh, well, Peter's getting in trouble. His mom said, "Don't go there." Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages, and the other shoe amongst the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, so that I think he might have gotten away altogether if he had not, unfortunately, run into a gooseberry net and got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons, quite new. There's that little shoe he lost, and there he's caught. Goodness sakes. In the gooseberry net. Peter gave himself up for lost and shed big tears. But his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows, who flew to him with great excitement and implored him to exert himself. Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve, which he intended to pop upon the top of Peter, but Peter wiggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind. There's the sparrows talking to him, and there he's going to get caught. Uh-oh. See what? Said he wiggled out just in time and rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not if it had not had so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in that tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each. Presently Peter sneezed. Achoo! Mr. McGregor was after him in no time. He's in that little can. It's a watering can. Look at him, Mr. McGregor, looking under those pots. See those little ears sticking up there? I think Mr. McGregor didn't see them ears. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the wood. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth she could not answer. She only shook her head at him. Peter began to cry. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled. Presently he came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very still, but now and then the tip of her tail twitched as if it were alive. Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. There's Peter when he's talking to that little mouse. And here's that cat looking at the goldfish. Oh, and there we see little Peter poking his head out. He went back towards the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. Scratch, 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 scratch. Peter scuttered underneath the bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon a wheelbarrow and peeped over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned towards Peter. Beyond him was the gate. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could go. Along a straight walk, behind some blackcurrant bushes, Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner. Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the wood outside the garden. There he is, checking out how to get away, and here he is, going as fast as he can to get out of that garden. Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him till he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flapped down upon the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was a second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a fortnight. Ooh, look at where that jacket ended up. And look at, there's Peter flopped down on the sand. There's his mama thinking. I am sorry to say that Peter was not very well during that evening. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea, and she gave a dose of it to Peter, 1 tablespoon to be taken at bedtime. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. So there they are having their supper. And that's the end. And then I have another little thing to show you that I got at a store. This is quite old by now, but listen to what it says.
Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. But round the end of a cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Peter never stopped running or looked behind him till they got home to the big fir tree. His mother put him to bed and made him some chamomile tea. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper.
Isn't that a cute little story? And it's all summed up so short. Sometimes it's fun to buy little toys at the store that resemble the books we read. It makes it something we can touch and play with. Well, hope you enjoyed the story. Love you. Bye-bye.